Hey, what's going on everyone? It's JoypadJake here, and welcome to our next retro game review. Man, it's been a while since I've gotten to say that. Today's review will be on Fire Emblem The Sacred Stones, which released to the US in 2005 for the Gameboy Advance, and has recently hit its 18-year anniversary for those of us here in the West. Let's get into the story for this game, shall we? Our story begins in the kingdom of Rheneas, which is under a surprise attack from the Grotto Empire ordered by Emperor Vigard. Amongst all the chaos, the Prince of Rheneas, Ephraim, is nowhere to be found. As Grotto continues to claim more and more territory, the King of Rheneas, Fado, orders General Seth to escort his daughter Erica to safety in a neighboring town. Once out of Rheneas, Erica and Seth set to find Ephraim, who has been causing a lot of trouble for the Grotto Empire. Throughout Erica's journey, she meets several new allies, such as the Myrmidon Joshua and the Pegasus Knight Vanessa. She eventually reunites with her brother Ephraim, and the two decide to split up and enlist the aid of several other nations in order to put a stop to the Grotto Empire and protect the Sacred Stones. Each sibling takes a small fighting force with them on their journey, both speculating what has become of their friend Prince Lion of Grotto. For the most part, I think this story succeeds at what it's trying to do. The prospect of using a dead king as the catalyst for a war to start is really interesting, and while Ephraim and Erica are not the greatest main characters, even compared to other lords in the Fire Emblem series, they're still very solid and do a good job of driving the story forward. This is by no means the most innovative or groundbreaking story, but it shouldn't make you fall asleep either. Now let's move on to the gameplay. The gameplay of Fire Emblem The Sacred Stones follows the same gameplay as the other two GBA Fire Emblem games that came before it, with a few small changes. The D-pad moves the cursor, the R button is used to check your character's stats, items, and current level, as well as those of your enemies. The A button has several features, including attack, wait, end turn, suspend battle, checking chapter goals, and many more. The B button is used to cancel any of these actions before you complete them to save you from making a wrong move, assuming you don't click too fast. Before you attack, you can see the HP, hit rate, damage, and crit chance of both your unit and the enemy that you're attacking. If a critical attack occurs, you'll receive an animation that is much more flashy than the standard ones, while also tripling the amount of damage done to your opponent. The animations are clean, flashy, and very entertaining to watch. Some of my personal favorite animations are the silencer animation for the assassins and the spinning axe crit from the warriors, just to name a few. Overall, the gameplay is pretty simple, but that doesn't keep it from being very entertaining. Now let's move on to the design. Fire Emblem The Sacred Stones has many elements of design that are very pleasing to the eye. The visual design of the maps is not necessarily better or worse than either of the two GBA Fire Emblem games that preceded it, it's just different in order to serve this different game. The grass-field plain-esque maps do get slightly repetitive, mainly in the early game, but they don't look bad by any means. Some of my favorite maps in terms of visual design are the pirate ship map, the desert map, the castle map on the chapter Father and Son, as well as the final map in the game. Now in terms of the characters, most of the sprites seen in this game have been seen in one or both of the previous GBA Fire Emblem games, but this game also brings in new Lord sprites as well as new class types like the Summoner. This game also utilizes one of my favorite visual aspects of the previous two GBA games, in that for all of the characters in your army, the unpromoted and versions of these sprites are all colored differently, which serves to differentiate them from other units of the same class, but also serves their portrait design. Some of my favorite sprites in this game are the Wyvern Knight, Assassin, Ephraim's unpromoted Lord form, as well as Lion's Demon King sprite that you see towards the end of the game. The design of this game is basically what you would have wanted from a GBA Fire Emblem game at the time, especially after playing the first two, and I think it works. Although this is far from my favorite Fire Emblem game, it does have a number of good aspects that make it very enjoyable. The game has a solid cast of characters, although notably less than the other two GBA Fire Emblem games. The music is also very catchy, with some of my favorite tunes in the series. I also really enjoy the feature of branching promotions, which first got introduced all the way back in Fire Emblem Gaiden. This feature allows you to test out the various promoted classes and see which ones you'd like to throw on a team. So if you wanted to make a team of 3 assassins, you could do that, or if you'd rather have 1 assassin, 1 swordmaster, and 1 rogue, you could do that too. As I mentioned before, this game's animations are very fun to look at and really add to the immersion of the game. One of my favorite features in this game that the other 2 GBA games lacked is the creature campaign. This feature adds tons of replay value, so if you really wanted to get every character in the game to their maximum promoted level and have an unstoppable army comprised of every class that the game has to offer, you can absolutely do that. The creature campaign also grants you access to other playable characters that were featured in the main story, but not playable. Fire Emblem 6 also did something similar to this, but I personally prefer the way that this game did it. I also think it's worth pointing out how similar this game is to Fire Emblem Gaiden. You have 2 lords, a route split, monsters, random encounters, branching promotions, and many, many more. You guys think Echoes was the first remake of Gaiden? Think again. Now some of you may be asking, that sounds like a pretty good deal, but what didn't you like about this game? Well, let's get into that now. Although I do enjoy this game, there are a few aspects that bring it down for me. The first is the story. The narrative itself is fine, but it's nothing super special. Although I like certain aspects of the story as a whole leaves much to be desired and feels kinda bland in some spots, in addition to having some scenes that are just brain-dead stupid in terms of writing. Another gripe that I have is that the game feels far too easy, especially in the endgame. Due to the inclusion of the Tower of Valny, you can grind up a death squad for a large part of the game and it makes the game a cakewalk. Although a lot of people love the tower, I personally thought it was an unnecessary inclusion in a game that was already pretty easy, even on difficult mode. Due to the game's lack of high challenge, I tended to promote very late into the story for the purpose of making the game more difficult, and occasionally I would choose to promote to the weaker class of the ones offered when you go to promote, such as making Joshua an assassin over a swordmaster, making Null a druid over a summoner, and making Garcia a warrior over a hero, just to name a few examples. Despite all of my gripes, I still get a lot of enjoyment from this game, and I respect a lot of the features that it introduced, even if I didn't particularly like some of them. This game still has plenty of entertaining aspects and a ton of replayability, which is why I'll give Fire Emblem The Sacred Stones a 7 out of 10. Thank you all for watching this review, and I hope you enjoyed yourselves. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a like, drop your thoughts in the comments, share this video with your friends, and subscribe if you'd like to see more. Till next time, guys.